Reviewing this film on its original release, the New York Times knocked it as being a fairly obvious and plodding recital involving crime, passion, stolen iridium, gangland beatings, and one man's innocent bewilderment upon being caught up in a web of circumstances that marks him for death. Well, I can't go for obvious and plodding, but the rest is spot on. The producers couldn't have sold it any better. D.O.A. is what I call a Houdini, as opposed to a whodunit. The culprit isn't nearly as important as the suspense of how are they going to get out of this. As entertainment, stories in which innocent people are put through the ringer are the nasty equivalent of the old banana peel gag. It's fun watching somebody else take the big fall. But usually in films of this type, the victims, battered and bruised, dust themselves off and walk away at the end. D.O.A. is remarkable for its utterly downbeat finish. Audiences in 1950 expecting a last-minute reprieve for Frank Bigelow must have been poleaxed. And over the years, this uncompromising ending has inspired some critics to attach dire significance to the film's crazy narrative. I've already discussed the idea that it's a commentary on the fear of nuclear annihilation. Others believe it's a cautionary tale about what happens when a man is unfaithful, as in, if he'd only used his head and not gone chasing tail. To all these folks, I say, lighten up. D.O.A. is the closest any film noir got to Looney Tunes. Realizing the insanely complicated plot is little more than a stream of gab-happy interrogations, director Rudolph Maté encouraged Edmund O'Brien to push things to a fever pitch. In response, O'Brien gives a performance more animated than Daffy Duck. When he lunges in and out of rooms, you can almost see the animated motion lines poofing from the door frames.
Well, it's about time you showed up, Bigelow.
He skitters and slides down hallways, outrunning his feet in the best Chuck Jones tradition. O'Brien is so overheated, if he stood still, he might drown in a pool of his own sweat. Now, this isn't a complaint. When he's directed to play it straight, like in The Killers and White Heat, O'Brien is the ideal everyman, struggling to make sense of all the corruption around him. But whenever things started to go a little flat, you could count on O'Brien to shake it up. He could go from sedate to speed freak in the bat of an eye. In addition to The Killers and White Heat, he co-starred in a slew of noirs. The Web, A Double Life, 7-Eleven Ocean Drive, Between Midnight and Dawn, The Hitchhiker, and Shield for Murder. In all, O'Brien was never less than entertaining, sometimes outrageously so, like in The Girl Can't Help It. And a fantastic shot of O'Brien running up San Francisco's Market Street was stolen by Maté and his crew, who filmed it surreptitiously and without permits. You can see where a few pedestrians are surprised when this jerk runs into them. Geez, that guy looked just like that actor. What's his name? Also memorable is the film's climax, shot inside the Bradbury Building in downtown L.A., a location used in many films, perhaps most famously Blade Runner. Harry and Leo Popkin, the producers of D.O.A., had their offices in the $1 Million Theater directly across the street at 3rd and Broadway. Maté got a lot of mileage out of shooting in the vicinity, even using the marquee of the $1 Million as a backdrop. The brothers Popkin began in the business as exhibitors, running a chain of California theaters, and they expanded into production in 1945 with the Agatha Christie adaptation, And Then There Were None. They mostly made noir, with some good ones to their credit, like Impact. After D.O.A., they produced the next two films by Russell Rouse and Clarence Green, The Well, which earned an Oscar nomination for Best Screenplay, and The Thief, distinguished by having not a single line of dialogue in its tale of a Cold War spy played by Ray Milland. And since a lot of people have asked me about this over the years, let me clarify. The Fisherman, the juke and jive joint where Frank downs his fatal dose, was not a real club. The scene was staged on a Hollywood set, the last thing shot for the film, in fact. And yes, that is Hugh O'Brien in one of his first screen bits, digging the Hepcat scene. Thanks to musical historian Jim Dawson, we know that the sweaty tenor player was James Von Streeter, who's shown performing with his raucous quintet, the Wig Poppers. That'd be Shifty Henry on bass, Cake Wichard on drums, Ray LaRue on piano, and Teddy Buckner on trumpet. Unfortunately, you're not really hearing the Wig Poppers because musical director Dmitri Tiomkin found them a little too raucous. He re-recorded the track with a bigger, smoother band. That's the sound of sax player Maxwell Davis coming out of Von Streeter's horn. As usual, I suggest you visit the Noir Alley Facebook page and Twitter feed, where you can review today's movie and get a sneak peek at next week's offering, which stars noir favorites Humphrey Bogart and Ida Lupino in a classic caper yarn, High Sierra. As for me, I am going to tempt fate and go pour myself one. See you next week, if I'm lucky.